Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. I'm Jennifer Wilson, and I'm here for another episode of Leadership Lunch Chat with my good friend, Amy Vetter. Hey, Amy.
Hi, happy to be here with you today.
Yeah, me too. And I'm so happy all of you are going to be with us for a few minutes here while we process leadership issues facing us and facing the accounting profession. And Amy and I were just talking about, things that don't resonate with next gen talent or next gen clients anymore. And we were thinking that that should be the theme for this conversation today. And and there was a little tiny bit of feeling on our part that we were going to bring up some stuff first that could be a little bit funny or maybe feelings hurt by some who are going to be like, wait a minute, we do this all the time. But also a little bit like you could hear some of this, like, we know this, but Amy and I keep running into it at firms, like running into some of this stuff that some people hearing it might think, what are you ladies talking about? That's so yesterday. And yet we're still seeing it. So, anyway, I'm going to start, and I'm going to start by sharing that, I've been telling firms that with a shrinking working age population here in the US, that there are three or four things we have to do in order to really maintain sustainability as firms.
Mm-hmm.
And, innovation, immigration, automation, and differentiation. And differentiation, I put firms in exercises all the time. And I just did this with firm leaders recently, a group of different firm leaders. And I said, okay, what's your wow factor? What makes you unique, special, and different? How are you going to attract more than your fair share and retain it in talent? And so many of them came back as one of their wow factors was that they have a family feel, or they are a family, or their firm feels like family. And and by the way, they had a lot of wow factors that aren't wow factors because everybody else in the profession says them, like large firm expertise, small firm feel, or there's a bunch of those kinds of things too. So think about wow factors because we need them. But anyway, this family feel thing, I have taken a position against family at work. I don't think it resonates with next gen talent. I think that that young people have been exposed to enough dysfunction in family. There's been enough divorce. Gen Z, they say that there's a very high percentage that come from non-traditional family, but also broken, divorced families and blended families, and they look at that and they think, this is my family, and maybe a little bit of dysfunction's allowed there, but I don't want my picture of family in my professional life. And so I think we have to stop saying that. I think we have to come up with something else. We could say, like, we are, talent first. We care a lot about each other. We put each other first. We're very team oriented. We're highly collaborative. We care. We're unselfish. I mean, there's a bunch of other stuff we could say to try to get to that.
Mm-hmm.
We look out for each other. We care about the whole person. We want you to succeed at home and at work. Those kinds of things. Those are all sort of family feel, but I think the word family has to come out of our workplace.
Yeah, and I think it goes I would actually take it a different way when it's being said. And I do try to think about it from a younger generation perspective of how they're viewing the profession. And one of them is I have to give up my family in order to work here. And so if I say this is family, I'm basically saying that I'm going to be here so much that this is taking over my real family.
Goodness.
And so I think it's very important. No one's looking for family at work. They're looking for friends. They're looking for colleagues. They're looking for good, wholesome people that they like and get along with. So, I think it's important to ask your people what they like about working at your firm and why they work there. And a lot of times when I interview staff, they're saying the people. But they're not saying it feels like family. They're saying, I enjoy, they're smart, they're intelligent, I'm learning from them, they're good people, I can trust them, whatever that is.
We have fun.
Yeah, we have fun, whatever you need to do. But I think there really has to be an eye out, again, from things that we do unintentionally for a good reason. So it's not that you're saying these things and to be, causing a reaction, but we do have to be careful of our words and the actions that maybe in the past was something that was acceptable and that people enjoyed, but now it's just not the same. And so it is important that we're very careful with that, and we're asking everybody what they want to see in our organization and how they want to feel and what they think the best things are, and bring those things out rather than what maybe has worked in the past, like the word family. This is a really hard time. I just want to stress this is that and this could be a whole nother conversation, so I don't want to take us off track, but it goes along with this, is that, in the profession, there's so much about pipeline, and not having enough pipeline. But, that's true. But the biggest thing is we're losing experienced staff that you've already recruited. And that's the harder work, because we have to look internally to ourselves. And it's these little things that matter. And so we think they don't matter, but they matter. And we do have to pay attention to that, because if we want to have bench strength and we want to have experienced staff, the way that we spoke and worked and maybe awarded people in the past is not necessarily what it is today.
100% agreement.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So something else that I think, I think that we need to look at, and this is, this sounds basic, but we just keep running into it, is the idea of, promotion criteria, and how are we building our leadership teams, and that could be promotion from senior to manager and from manager to partner. It could be in whatever promotion from one level to another. I think part of what we have to look at is homogeneous groups, and trying to really pay attention to the diversity of our groups. And I know on the DE&I side, some people could hear this as me saying, take two candidates, one's better than the other, one's diverse, one's not, diversity wins. I am saying that. But I'm not saying they're not exactly the same. If they're exactly the same, diversity should be what we're leaning toward, because we need more diverse viewpoints in this profession. It's, forever at the leadership level, it's been the profession of white men.
Yeah.
Now, yes, we're maybe 23% or something female in the partner group these days. Yay. Yeah. Well, and I don't know if that's actually equity partners.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'd have to dig into that data a little bit, but that's still a quarter, not 50%. We're not there yet on the female
side. And when you get to ethnicity everything else, it goes lower. And I think the important part of this that maybe we lose sight of in this conversation is that if I don't see me, I'm never going to shift my organization, right? So if I don't see someone like me in a leadership role, I'm going to assume there's not a role for me. It is an unconscious bias. It is something that we just feel internally that we may not say out loud, but it is something that unless we have the wherewithal to push through, and, you and I, when we were coming up through our career, there weren't many women that were leaders. And it was, to have the wherewithal and think that you could have a chance was really hard, but not everybody has that within them. And they do need to see it, and they need to know that there's people reaching for them from leadership roles to help groom them and mentor them. And so a really good way to step back and look at this is because where I do think firms do better is at the staff level. So at the staff level, you will see, more, not great, but better diversity. And so is your management team the same percentage of the diversity that's in your staff? And if it's not, then it's the moment we need to step back and observe and say, what do we need to do better? And rather than going, oh, there's no candidates or there's no pipeline or whatever. If we actually have it at our staff level, then there's something we're not doing from a mentoring, a coaching level to actually bring up diverse people into management and partnership and so forth. And secondly, the other place I see this, again, when you have everyone that's homogeneous in a room, when you're looking at acquisitions and mergers, a lot of times we look for people without realizing it. We're looking at acquisitions that are just like us rather than saying, is there a diverse boutique firm that we could bring in-house? And what would that look like? And how do we actually think about acquisitions differently, not just promotions, to bring more team members into the firm that would create more diversity and give people more opportunity as well. So it's not saying that there's anything less valuable about any one person, but it is saying that there has to be an awareness and an observation that if everybody looks the same, and that could be all women too, like if everyone looks the same, why is that? What is our bias that's creating that? And either we own it and say that's just who we are, or we say that we've got to make some shifts in how we're grooming people and acquiring people for our firm to really shift the conversation that we're better represented every level of the firm. It's not one person. It's whatever the percentage is. Like if your staff has a percentage of 50-50 men and women and diversity is 30-30-30, whatever it is, then your leadership team should reflect the same percentages
at least.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a tall order right now in our profession, but boy, we have to have a commitment to shift it. And I want to draw it back to the theme of this conversation, which was what attracts next gen or repels them. I think even, Caucasian male next gen people look at a lack of diversity and say, oh yeah, that's not that entity is not sustainable because it doesn't reflect the population and it doesn't reflect where we're headed. Well, and so I think they're not attracted to it. I think that it doesn't matter. Next gen wants diversity and they expect it, and they can't, they can't understand why it wouldn't be a priority. And so they're not going to be attracted to organizations that lack it.
Yeah. I mean, if I just think about my sons, it's so interesting how they go about making decisions. I mean, with sustainability, with environmental, with, all things.
Community outreach.
Yes, all of those things matter in making a decision of where they go to work, of who they choose to spend time with. And I do think, I was in a conversation again, and this is important too, about social media. And there was like a whole table of people my age, basically talking about, putting down TikTok and putting down these other social media platforms. And I was saying, as an example, when I had my yoga studio, we would do advertising on Facebook. And I had my son come work at the front desk and he's like, why are you on Facebook? That's for old people. And so I said, well, where should I be? And he's like, well, you need to be on Snapchat and do geolocations. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So you're in charge of it.
Yes.
And so that's the thing. Like, we have to be careful with our conversations. And this also gives us opportunity to say, if we don't know something, then actually give leadership responsibility to your younger generation to teach you or to head it up in your firm, to do the TikToks, out there about your firm that would be interesting and fun, that would attract other people like them, or whatever messages would help attract other people like them into the firm, so that you do get more people coming in, and it is a different conversation. It's just different than what you know.
Well, and so that's a perfect example. So a couple thoughts have been going through my mind. One is back to your idea of diversity of candidates, and we don't have the right pipeline, and we can't find the people that are different, and recruit remotely. If the people aren't in your marketplace, recruit remotely. Don't don't be negative about phone, smartphone and digital media based communications that next gen use and value, because you don't understand them.
Right.
That's what you're saying, is don't look down your nose and not prioritize them. Not just not prioritize them, but talk bad about them. That's, I know that in 2008, when I first got my first LinkedIn account, a lot of people thought I was wasting time, on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook. And there was a lot of people that are like, that's ridiculous, and we don't know why you'd spend any energy there. And, and I was teaching it and begging people to listen to me about it, but it wasn't understood. And that's okay. If you don't understand it, hand it off, like you said, to somebody who is interested. But I promise you, TikTok or something like it is going to be how people are communicating, period. And they're building real relatedness, wonderful relationships, incredible communication channels using that medium right now. It's really an amazing channel of communication. And so just because we don't understand it doesn't mean we make it frivolous or stupid or whatever, and or immediately toss the idea that it could impact us in business. And when we do that, here's what next gen, it goes through their mind. They think, old school, old fashioned, small-minded, not listening or learning. I don't want to be part of that. I want to be part of something that's innovating and expanding their mental boundaries and learning and trying new things. And so we have to be careful about all that stuff. And I'm things I don't understand, I can easily make wrong in conversation. I have to be careful also. We all do. It's just and the older we get, the more innovations happening, that especially technologically, that we may not be exposed to immediately. Right. Kids are a good conduit for it. If you've got some, you should be constantly saying, what are you using and doing lately, and trying to get them to teach you. But man, we've got to make sure next gen talent are empowered inside our businesses to take these tools and these resources and these ideas and not make them wrong or silly, and give them a platform to teach us. And then we can decide what to do. I love that, Amy. I love it a lot. So you had another one that you said earlier that I think is an important one. It kind of harkens back to yesteryear or something. And so maybe tell a little bit of that story, and then we'll wrap.
Yeah, I think, again, it's something that we have always done in the past, maybe as a, it's out of good intention. But again, thinking through the fact that people do not want their work to take over their life. They want to work hard, but they don't want to work all the time. And so one of the things that I've seen recently on promotions is thanking the family for giving up the time for that person to be able to dedicate, to be able to make it to the next level. And we really need to be careful of that, even though it's made out of good intention, that if we're thinking the family, a younger generation person is looking at that saying, oh my God, they had to give up family time in order to get to that level. And so we have to be very careful, again, with something with good intention, that it's not having a result to others, that it's an example that they're going to have to give up their life in order to get to a certain level. And so it's just one of those things that, is something that happens in all sorts of companies and professions without really thinking through the alternate ways that people might observe that comment, even though it's out of good intention. But again, we have to rethink how we go about this. It is totally fine to have family members celebrating their family members' promotions and being invited to those things and so forth. But what we don't want to send the message is they had to give up family time in order to get that promotion.
Well, thanking them for their support or something. But, I couldn't agree more. And the other thing is that it's going to get weird because the definition of family is totally different these days, So like if I'm promoting a young man and I'm thanking his wife and children for all their, giving up all those hours during the long busy seasons, that's a terrible story, to tell. And then also then right next to them is, another young man. And I hope if he's in a same-sex marriage, I am acknowledging his same-sex partner for giving up all that family time. And I would hope that we would be progressive enough to do that. But the minute we start being like, thank your spouse or thank your wife, or, I don't have a spouse, I live alone, nobody had to give up anything, or, it's just.
Or it's also a message to a mother that's working that is the husband going to take on enough for her to be able to get to the next level? Or if she's a single mom and she doesn't have that support,
right.
she's, doing everything that, so
yeah, she internalizes that whole show, right?
Yeah.
She's like, wow, I guess I can't get there because I don't have that. And
right.
I think it's old fashioned in too many ways. We've hit on some of them, but some of them is like, hey, you had a whole support network. It was way more than your spouse, significant other, or children. We're not going to thank them all. We're not going to invite them and up to the stage for this, or call them on the phone or whatever. Write them you got promoted on your own merits using your network and the support that you built. And as an employer, I'm not going to try to name that. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to call it anything. I'm going to congratulate you.
Yes.
And acknowledge that you had
whatever personal decisions you made to get there as your business.
Absolutely. And when you first started telling me about this, I was thinking back in the day, people, to become a partner in a firm, they wanted to have dinner with you and your spouse.
Yeah.
To decide if you're I don't know why.
Yeah.
And, to decide if your spouse was going to be too disruptive to I don't know. I don't, or qualify them if they're supportive enough. I'm not sure what that was about, but that is just yesterday. Mm-hmm. And that's all I can say about it, is that we can't be doing that stuff anymore. And even though it might have been done all this time in the firm, that's one to abolish, I think. Yes. Stop all of that.
Yes. So I think we got over time, but
we
keep going all the time.
I know we could do a part 2 on this another day, and we would love you to add to this post when you see it. If you watch this recording, add to the things that you think are really need to go away. They're just old customs that aren't attractive to next gen. That's what we're interested in. And we appreciate you tuning in this week and look forward to being with you next week. I think we're on next week. Caroline will nod or not, but we are on next week. We will see you next Friday for another episode of Leadership Lunch Chat. Have a great week.